What's going on, folks? I'm Renegade, and currently I'm a who. The new bandaging I got from my physical therapist for my fingers allows for a lot more mobility while I still have to protect my fingertips. Yeah, this sucks. I actually just left my physical therapy, and yeah, making progress. So this whole thing has been a very long process for me. My accident was the 30th of June, and so it's been about 6 weeks since my accident, 5 weeks since I had surgery. It doesn't sound like a lot of time. In fact, my physical therapist is saying it's not. It's like barely any time at all. But for somebody who works with their hands nonstop, this is like torture. So I'm glad I'm making progress. But I, like probably many of you, I have this unquenchable desire to learn. And anytime something bad happens to me, I try and make it a learning experience. I want to come away from this having learned something. And maybe it's because a lot of the people that I'm a big fan of, that's their philosophy in life. You know, I'm a big fan of Henry Rollins and his spoken word. He's always saying, gotta learn me a thing or two. I'm a motor YouTube channel. I'm not quite cars, I'm not quite motorcycles, I kind of do both. So, yeah. So, I figured it might be interesting to talk to you guys about what I've learned from this whole experience in terms of cars. Particularly in terms of driving, because I feel like I've learned the most there. I mean, you can get into the medical side of what I've learned, which is like, you know, well, there's a lot of movement that goes in with your hand, and there's a lot of muscles and tendons, and if they don't move, they get atrophied, and that's... But we're not going to get all there, get into all that detail. Let's just talk about driving. I love to drive. Love to drive. For me, driving is an enjoyable experience. It's not just getting from point A to point B, but there's enjoyment in driving. You know, I like going out for cruises. Hop in the car, go drive around. You know, and it's not just like the movement, it's the whole process. It's part of why I enjoy driving a stick shift so much. Because I am actually driving and I'm doing things. And I'm insane about my learning when it comes to driving. I want to know every possible technique that I can learn, and I want to implement it as best I can. Well, luckily, in the process of all this, I had to think a little more. See, as part of the injury, part of the recovery from the injury, whatever you want to call it, my fingertips are pretty sensitive right now. They've got new flesh on them, although it's scabbed up like a you-know-what. It's still sensitive, and because the nerves are healing, they're kind of firing off all random, and it becomes very sensitive to a lot of things. So shocks, and not like an electrical shock, but like a jarring shock. It is not a fun feeling at all. So this made me kind of learn a little bit about driving to try to avoid those shocks. Originally, when I started driving again, long story short, at the beginning of all this, my battery was not in my car and I could not physically lift the battery because I couldn't use my one hand. So I wasn't able to drive for a couple weeks. That sucked. But once I got my car, once I was able to drive again because somebody helped me put the battery back in, I could only drive with one hand. Now that presents a problem because I drive a stick shift. So genius or idiot that I am, I quickly adapted to this. Now I don't suggest you do this. In fact, I don't suggest you go get an injury like this to do it. I learned how to shift smoothly using my left hand. Again, I don't suggest it. It's really not the best way to go about shifting. But hey, when you gotta do what you gotta do, you make do. Now part of the fun of this was that originally, I didn't even have the gripping strength in my hand. Like I had no mobility in this hand. I couldn't even grip the steering wheel. The most I could do is like put my hand on it and press against it. But for the most part, I was actually driving with my hand like in my lap like this. That meant if I wanted to shift, that means if I wanted to shift, I had to go hand off of wheel, shift gears, hand back on wheel. Now in a straight line, that's not difficult, but if you come to a corner, it's very hard to then steer and shift. Sure, I can drive using my knee and I can steer that way, but I can't steer with my knee and press the clutch in all at the same time. By the way, I don't suggest driving like that. I'm just saying I can in an instance that I would need to. Yeah, so this meant that I had to actually think ahead. I had to make sure that I was shifting prior to the corner. I'm coming up to corner. I know that for this, I'm currently in 5th gear. I need to be in 3rd gear for this corner. So, downshift, and then make my corner, make my turn. This is actually a technique that you hear about in racing. This is what race car drivers do. Now at the time I was doing it out of necessity because I couldn't steer and shift at the same time with one hand. What's cool though is, because I was doing it for so long, now it's habit. Now I am habitually shifting before I go into a corner. Even though you just saw I'm shifting now with my left hand again, or with my right hand. Whatever hand this is. C. L makes left, the other one makes you a loser. Okay, yeah. One of the other cool things is, and I don't know if you guys are fans or if you know about him or anything like that. If you're in the car world, I would hope you are. But there's a YouTuber out in Ohio named Casey Push. And he is, I don't know if you want to call him famous or notorious, I don't know. Dude's insane. He built himself the world's only turbine-powered Batmobile. He's currently working on this insane build for what he's calling the King Zero, which is basically going to be what he imagines as the production version of the Lancia Stratos Zero car being. Dude's nuts. But, great channel. I highly suggest you check it out. And he's put out a bunch of videos about tips for how to drive better. Things like clutch control, braking control, how to smooth shiftly, or, wow, I can't speak. How to shift smoothly. Now, I've been driving for over a decade. I've been driving for what, 14 years, 15 years? Does math. About 15 years. And a large chunk of that now has been driving a manual transmission car. And plenty of that is driving using or riding a motorcycle, which is also a manual transmission. But, like I said, I have a habit and a need to learn more. So, these videos that he put out give tips about, you know, being smoother on your clutch, being smoother on your gas pedal, causing less herky-jerky motion. I admit, I thought I was a pretty good driver. I thought I was pretty smooth. But after watching this video, or these videos, I'm realizing, like, I'm not as smooth as I thought I was. I still had some herky-jerky. So I took the advice that he was giving in these videos and I started implementing it. First by testing it out, and then by trying to do it all the time, and now it's kind of become a habit. By the way, in no way, shape, or form am I connected to Casey Putsch or anything like that. In fact, save for a couple comments that I've left on his videos, the dude probably has no friggin' idea who I am, nor does he probably really care. Hey, I'm a low-level YouTuber, so, you know, he's a busy dude. But things that he talked about in his videos were things like double clutching on downshifts, which allows the transmission and the motor to move at the same speed. So you don't get the herky-jerky while you're downshifting. What does that look like? Clutch, neutral, out of clutch, in gear. I had to slow it down. That was where things got difficult. Obviously, he mentioned things like rev matching, which I've been trying to do for a while. You also might know it as heel-toe shifting. When your foot is on the brake, you move your foot and you clip the gas pedal. Different ways of doing it. Some people do the heel on the brake, some people do the toe on the brake. Whatever works for you, you know? But this gets the same thing. It helps the transmission and the motor move at the same speed, which allows you a smoother, cleaner shift with less wear and tear on your vehicle. For me, because I had this injury, I wanted less herky-jerky, less shocks to the system, because I couldn't handle it. Every time I had a jolt, a bump, like, man, through the fingers, it didn't feel good. So for me, I started doing this as a way to avoid those fun little jerks and bumps. The benefit of it is, now, even though I'm not as susceptible to the bumps and jerks and the shock feeling going up my fingers, because I'm doing it, my driving has improved. Hey, to me, that's what it's all about. Obviously, an injury like this is not fun, and I do not suggest it. And I do not suggest that anybody goes out and gets an injury ever. So be very careful, and be very, very careful of your fingers. This was a freak accident, and it sucks so bad. Not just pain, but like everything. It all sucks. But if you have an accident and you have an injury like this, use it as a learning experience. Right now, I am limited as to what I can do. I can't really go out and work on the car, although this past weekend, thanks to a little help from Miss Stephanie, I was able to replace the belts on my car. Which I only did basically because I had one snap on me, so the car wasn't... I didn't really want to drive the car much with the alternator barely working and the water pump barely working. I'd rather everything actually, you know, worked as it should. But I'm limited. I can't do certain things that I want to do just because of the injury, because of the healing process. As I said, I don't suggest anyone has an injury like this. Injuries like this suck. But if you have one, use a learning experience. And while you're going about your daily life, especially if you still have full functionality of your fingers, your hands, etc., maybe you want to try some things in a safe environment. You know, maybe if you have a manual car, go somewhere nice and safe and practice shifting with your left hand, just so that should anything happen, you can do it. You won't be that much more limited just because, oh, well, I drive a manual, so I can't drive. I don't suggest you drive shifting all the time with your left hand, but hey, it's a useful thing to know in case you have to. And I highly suggest that everybody tries different driving techniques because it does make a difference. It can improve your driving, it can make you a better driver, a safer driver, a smoother driver. Highly suggest it. There's a lot of techniques out there to learn. Double clutching, heel toe shifting, or rev matching, whatever you want to call it. Left-footed braking. You know. Nice. Learn your steering, which best line to use through a corner, so you don't have to lose speed, so you can keep the car steadier, not cause as much body roll. Because don't forget, there are plenty of times that you won't be the only person in the car, you'll have a passenger, and less body roll, less herky-jerky. Of course, I can't really do much in this car because I've stabilized it so much. But like, it makes it a more enjoyable, more pleasurable ride for your passengers. Learn these things, they're useful. Now, if you guys have any questions, do you want to see somebody like me? Because these videos I'm talking about, like Casey Putsch is a race car driver. He has raced like Formula One and, you know, all these crazy racing, SCCA. He and Genius Garage have a Corvette, an IMSA Corvette, which makes like 700 horsepower or something. So I mean, he's fairly well versed in how to drive. I'm a normal person doing this stuff. So if you would like to see how to do it, kind of the normal person's take on it, let me know down in the comments, and we'll see about hooking up some videos of doing that. Could be fun, you know. Maybe if you want to see a video on how to drive a manual transmission, you can do that too. It's a very valuable thing to know. I think everybody should know how to drive a stick shift. Because what if you're in a situation, maybe it's just because I worry about bad situations and what ifs, but what if you're in a situation where you're in your buddy's car, your buddy has an accident, now you've got to drive somewhere, and he drives a manual. So let me know in the comments if you'd like to hear something about that too. For anybody who's curious, I'm healing very quickly. My physical therapist is actually amazed because I have way more mobility and motion and strength than he would have expected for somebody who, you know, lost their fingertips and had their hands immobilized for 5-6 weeks. So I am on the rebound. It's just taking too long for my personal taste. So, using my bad accident as a learning experience to be a better driver, because I want to avoid, or I wanted to avoid, the shocks to my hand. You'd have to ask Stephanie if she notices a difference in my driving, being the passenger, not being connected to the car as much as the driver is. But I noticed the difference. So for me, that's a win. That's gonna do it for me, guys. Remember, if you like this video, hit the like button. And if you guys have any ideas for videos, let me know down in the comments as well. if you'd like. Don't forget to hit the link down in the description box for coffee.com. And if you want to donate a little something to my channel, why not buy me a coffee? A couple bucks. You know, if you don't want to, you don't have to. It's all good. But until next time, guys, y'all keep rocking and rolling. I'm going to keep taking care of business. I'm going to go get myself some coffee, go for a little walk. And I'll see you in the next one.